Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, September 21st, 2019, and today we're going to be taking a look at the next Democrat to drop out of the 2020 Democratic presidential race. So this is all speculation. This is obviously not insider information, whatever. But today we're just going to be taking a look at the current data that we have right now and predicting who is going to drop out of the presidential race upcoming next. So right now, we actually have a list of candidates that have pretty much dropped out. This is the fundraising thing, which I will get to in just a moment. But we have a number of candidates that actually dropped out. Bill de Blasio dropped out a couple days ago, if not yesterday, pretty recently. Kirsten Gillibrand dropped out a little while ago. Mike Gravel, John Hickenlooper, Jay Inslee, Seth Moulton, I believe Richard Ojeda, and Eric Swalwell. All these people have dropped out of the presidential race. So we're actually down to less than 20. We're at 19 right now, so still a very crowded field of people, just a couple less than before. But right now, looking at this data, we don't see a lot of good news for a number of these Democratic nominee candidates. We see people at 0%, less than 1% pretty much at this point is essentially saying that they really have no chance. I'm going to go ahead and cover this presidential nomination polling. Pretty much the only main takeaways about the top candidates are that Biden is in first place, rebounding after losing numbers from the debate, actually about as high as he was before the debate. Elizabeth Warren actually has spiked up to a pretty solid second place. She's in her highest point ever. Not the highest point for a second place candidate, but her highest point ever compared to Bernie Sanders, about 3%. Actually, no, more than 3% ahead of Bernie Sanders, even though she's been pretty much neck and neck with him throughout the entire campaign season. Sanders is in third place. Pete Buttigieg has actually overcome Senator Harris for a fourth place spot nationwide, which is pretty interesting. It's just been a constant decline for Warren since the first debate. After her spike up there, she pretty much has not been doing good, and she's back down to where she was before the first debate. But that's not what this video is about. We have a number of these Democratic nomination candidates that have no real shot, to put it completely, to be frank about it. These candidates don't really have a shot at the 2020 Democratic nomination. There may be hope for some of them to possibly get up there in numbers, but to be completely honest, we're probably going to see a nominee such as Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, or maybe one of the fourth or fifth place candidates. We see people like Andrew Yang who have actually improved over time, but at the same time, again, 3% nationwide isn't exactly killing the Democratic nomination. But we have Joe Biden right now at 30%. We have Elizabeth Warren at 20%, Bernie Sanders at 17%, and Buttigieg at 6%, and Harris at 6%. So those are all the candidates that are over 5% nationwide. Other than that, all the rest of the 14 candidates remaining are less than 5%. Some of these candidates were more notable than others, but we're pretty much going to be focusing on the ones that are pretty low in terms of their polling data. As we've seen in the most recent debate, it only had 10 people, the people that were actually able to qualify in said debate. And the thing is, a lot of these candidates did not end up qualifying. A lot of them do not have the polling numbers that they need. We see people like Bennett, who's, I believe, a senator from the state of Colorado at 0.8%. We have John Delaney, a representative from Maryland at 0.8%. Steve Bullock, governor of Montana at 0.5%. Marianne Williamson, I don't know. I don't think she holds a political office. Tim Ryan from Ohio, representative, 0.3%. Joe Sestak, I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure a representative. And Wayne Messam, a mayor from Florida. Now, I do think Wayne Messam is going to eventually drop out. There's no way he lasts the Iowa caucus, but I think Messam is going to be probably the first to go. Possibly we could see John Delaney drop out pretty early in terms of comparing it to the primaries. Though he does have a lot of money, he's probably not going to waste a lot of it. He's probably going to end up holding on to whatever money he has left as soon as he drops out, which I do think could come up pretty soon. We saw reports about his staff members asking him to drop out. I guess a couple of them maybe want to work on another campaign or are just tired of having a bid from 2017 go this long. Whatever it might be, a lot of people are calling out on people like John Delaney to drop out. Marianne Williamson, I think, will eventually drop out. She really does not like the whole ideologies and like the way she's treated by the left. I wouldn't exactly say they treat her the best either, but at the same time, that's just how the game is played. A lot of these candidates are verbally attacked in debates or in political ads, etc. But Marianne Williamson, I do think, is going to drop out. So I do think Wayne Messam is definitely going to be out. Marianne Williamson and John Delaney are definitely up there as well. When we see people like Joe Sestak and Tim Ryan, they haven't really been polling well at all. Marianne Williamson sure got some spotlight at the possible debates. John Delaney only has his name out there because of the fact that he was the first Democrat to announce he was running. Keep in mind, Andrew Yang announced right after him. Wayne Messam at 0.0%. That's not a good spot whatsoever. If we look at this, they don't even make the chart here, which is definitely not a good sign. If we go ahead and take a look at the top candidates, we know all of these people. We know Cory Booker, we know Beto O'Rourke, we know Bernie Sanders, we know Joe Biden, whatever. But if we're looking at some of these candidates, if you even saw them on who would you vote for the 2020 Democratic nomination, you probably wouldn't know them either. That's also the problem with a lot of these candidates continuing to run in the Democratic race. The thing is, even if they do somehow end up winning the nomination, nobody would have known them before the 2020 race. That logic goes for someone like Pete Buttigieg, who actually did well. But if we see people who are consistently under 1% for such a long period of time, with this many opportunities to get on the debate stage, to actually not in the recent one, but on the debate stage before, to say something that could actually get their voices out, they've run out of time to pretty much boost their numbers. We could see a possible jump for some of these candidates in the future if they're able to stay in the race and they have like a gotcha moment for someone like Joe Biden, like Kamala Harris did back in the first debate, jumping up to 15% practically overnight, and now she's down to exactly where she was, actually less than where she was on the first debate stage. But again, we're probably not going to see that happen. We'll probably see an increase with Andrew Yang moving past Beto O'Rourke. If Andrew Yang passes Senator Harris, which he actually has in her own home state, that's something to also note as well. Andrew Yang we could possibly see a fourth, fifth place nationwide. Probably not going to overcome Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, and even then, that's still a pipe dream to get to fourth, fifth place nationwide. I do think that he probably would overcome Beto O'Rourke eventually. Cory Booker at 2.8%, not too good of a look for him here. Julian Castro, the thing about him is he also announced pretty early, and he's former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Barack Obama. He's not doing too well in his own home state. If we look at some of, we'll talk about the home state moment in a second, but if we look at this is organized not by total raise. I can do that right now. But we have the number of candidates that have raised the most money nationwide. So Bernie Sanders is in the top, Warren, Buttigieg. The thing is, Delaney has raised $26 million. That is practically insane. But then we go ahead and take a look at the number of donations that were less than $200, 10%. So the thing is, 1 in 10 of these John Delaney voters donated less than $200, which means that 9 out of 10 of them donated more than $200. In fact, that is one of the worst numbers that we've seen besides Bill de Blasio down here. John Delaney is, number one, he started off rich. He ended up with raising $26 million. He's in debt of $16 million. He spent $18 million. That's a really, really not a good look. Bernie Sanders is in $0 of debt. Same thing for Warren, Buttigieg, and Joe Biden. Joe Biden might have raised less than John Delaney, but obviously the numbers definitely show. But if we take out John Delaney, all of these candidates are definitely name candidates nationwide. The only one that I would possibly say you might not have heard of would maybe be Tulsi Gabbard, maybe Kirsten Gillibrand, but you definitely have seen a lot of these other candidates. But as we go down, we see people still in this race, like Wayne Messam, who's raised $93,000. He's definitely going to be out soon. Tim Ryan, less than $1 million. Still not in debt, though. Steve Bullock, again, even though he is from a red state, still no official recognition from the Democratic Party. Marianne Williamson, again, pretty good debate spotlight moments, but again, not doing too well. But the rest of these candidates aren't doing too well either. Once it cuts off at Yang, a lot of these other candidates, these are $5 million plus. That's okay to an extent. But a lot of them still don't have a chance, even with a lot of this money. A lot of them are wasting money on things that they really shouldn't be wasting money on. So let's go ahead and take a look at actually the recent Democratic primary polling data in some of these states. We have New Jersey, which shows Biden ahead of Warren and Warren ahead of everyone else. Same thing goes for a number of these polls, which is pretty interesting. Iowa actually shows Warren ahead by 8%. The overall average here is still Biden plus 3.7, but still Warren is actually ahead of there by 8%. Florida shows Biden ahead by 10. The only spot where Wayne Messam actually does pretty well, which is still 3%. Iowa, Biden plus 2. California, a tie. California again, Biden plus 9. New York, Biden plus 5. But if we're looking at a lot of these second and third place candidates, still a pretty good look for people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. As for the rest of these candidates, it's really, really hard to see how they're going to do well. In fact, I don't know if the California data is here. Yeah, actually, it's right here. Andrew Yang at 7%, and Senator of California, Senator Kamala Harris, is at 6%. That is very, very interesting to me, though it is an Emerson poll, which typically skews in favor of people like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, but Regardless, that's not like a personal thing. That's just something that I've pretty much pointed out in every single video where I covered 2020 Democratic presidential polling data. But again, that is pretty interesting. So Biden is still doing pretty well nationwide. It pretty much amazes me that he has been able to hold on to a lead for so long, saying literally whatever he's thinking, and still holding on to that lead. But again, a lot of these other candidates are inching up on him. Though he may be at a point where he was a couple months ago, a lot of these candidates are a lot higher than where they were. For example, well, not necessarily Pete Buttigieg, but Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders definitely are on coming up to Joe Biden at some point. Keep in mind, Biden's peak was 41%, but that was right after he announced. Up to the first debate, he was still around 32%, and right now he's at 30% nationwide. So still around the same numbers as before, but a lot of these, actually these two other candidates that are really coming for Joe Biden are actually improving in terms of their numbers. So not too good of a sign. So this pretty much turned into a who's going to drop out, also into a Democratic primary analysis. But if I was to bet today, Wayne Messam, John Delaney, Marianne Williamson, Joe Sestak, Tim Ryan. But Steve Bullock might hold on. He's really stubborn. He does not want to run for Senate, even though a lot of Democrats are pushing him to run. Julian Castro, I definitely don't see dropping out. Tom Steyer, probably not again. He has money. And Michael Bennet, maybe not yet. We'll talk about that when we go ahead and take a look at some of these insider reports from a number of these campaigns on the inside. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.